Caleb Williams, Chicago Bears. We all knew it was coming eventually. The future is now here for the Bears, and there are a lot of reasons to be excited. Caleb Williams is a great quarterback prospect, and he showed that time and time again in college. He didn't start his true freshman season at Oklahoma as a starter, but it didn't take very long for him to overtake Spencer Rattler for the role. He went on to throw for 1,900 yards and 21 touchdowns to 4 interceptions and rushed for 6 touchdowns. After the season, head coach Lincoln Riley left for USC, and his 5-star quarterback came with him. Williams was even better as a sophomore, playing alongside Jordan Addison. Caleb won the Heisman Trophy after he had 4,500 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, and also rushed for 10 touchdowns. Last year, USC didn't have nearly as much team success, but Williams still played well with 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, plus 11 rushing touchdowns. Caleb Williams was clearly good in college, and he's long been expected to be the first overall pick. The Bears got their guy and hopefully landed their franchise quarterback, but he wasn't the only Chicago first-round pick. The Bears also had the 9th overall pick, which was actually their original selection, and used it on Rome Odunze. He's coming off of a 1,400-yard season and 13 touchdowns off 81 receptions, catching passes from Michael Penix Jr. He was a top wide receiver in the country and a consensus All-American. He performed well in 2022 with Penix 2, catching 75 passes for 1,145 yards and 7 touchdowns. Odunze had a great 2-year stretch at Washington. Before that, he had 41 receptions, 414 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 2021 pre-Penix. He didn't have much of a role as a freshman, just 72 yards rushing during the 2020 COVID season. Odunze is a really good wide receiver prospect and is coming off of a big season on a great receiving core. He played alongside Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan as well. Those 3 in Penix helped the Huskies reach the national championship. And now, Odunze gets to go from playing on the biggest stage in college to playing in the pros. And he gets to play alongside one of the biggest names in college football, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is now the 3rd quarterback drafted in the 1st round by the Bears in the last decade. It's safe to say that those other 2 didn't exactly work out. In 2017, Chicago moved up to the 2nd overall pick to take Mitch Trubisky. Everyone knows the story. After, Patrick Mahomes went 8 picks later, and then the Texans selected Deshaun Watson 12th overall. Now, say what you will, but Trubisky did make the Pro Bowl in 2018, and let's not forget that he won an MVP during the 2020 wildcard game. That's really important stuff here. He had a pretty rocky rookie season, like a lot of rookies do. He sat behind Mike Glennon until he became the full-time starter in Week 5. Mitch finished the year 4-8 while passing for 2,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Then head coach John Fox got fired after the season, and Matt Nagy was brought in to fix the problems. Trubisky looked like a completely different player the next season. He threw for 3,200 yards and 24 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. More importantly, the Bears went 11-3 with Mitch starting and 12-4 overall before eventually losing to the Eagles in the wild card. The next season, though, Trubisky didn't make a jump. He was actually worse. He went 8-7 and passed for 3,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. That led to the Bears trading for Nick Foles to have an open quarterback competition for the starting job. And around that same time, Chicago declined Trubisky's 5th-year option. Mitch did end up winning the job, but was benched after Week 3 before starting again in Week 12 and beyond because of a hip injury to Nick Foles. In all, Mitch started in 9 games plus a wildcard loss to the Saints. Trubisky had 2,055 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. He spent 2021 with the Bills and the last 2 seasons in Pittsburgh, where he started 7 games. And now, Trubisky is back in Buffalo again to back up Josh Allen. Mitch Trubisky was a bust, and it hurts even more knowing that he was the only quarterback drafted before Patrick Mahomes. Chicago just missed, and they did it again in 2021, although this time it was a little bit different. Once again, the Bears traded up in the NFL draft, this time to 11 to get Justin Fields. He was the 4th quarterback off the board after there was a run of 3 straight to start the draft: Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. Fields started his rookie year as the backup to Andy Dalton, but that didn't last very long. Dalton got hurt in Week 2 and Fields took over. Fields did miss some time later on with injuries, and he ended up starting in 10 games total. He went 2-8 and passed for 1,870 yards, 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, and rushed rushed for 420 yards and 2 touchdowns. Fields definitely used his legs in 2021, but it was nothing compared to his sophomore season. He rushed for 1,143 yards, becoming the third quarterback ever to rush for over 1,000 yards, joining Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson. He also rushed for 8 touchdowns. He went on to pass for 2,200 yards and 17 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. Fields was definitely better, but the Bears were not. They went 3-12 with Fields starting and went a league worst 3-14 overall. Not to mention, they didn't win a game until after week 7. In the offseason, Chicago decided to trade away the first overall pick instead of taking Bryce Young and gave Fields another season to prove himself. He went 5-8 as he missed 4 games with a dislocated shoulder and thumb. Fields ended up throwing for 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, and he rushed for 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. Clearly, that wasn't good enough for the Bears to want to pass up on taking a quarterback first overall again. 2021 really wasn't that long ago, but the Bears look like a completely different team now. When Chicago traded away the first overall pick last year, they ended up landing DJ Moore in addition to some picks. Moore had 3 1,000-yard seasons with the Panthers, but just had his career best season in Chicago with 96 catches for 1,364 yards and 8 touchdowns, all career highs. He currently is the clear number 1 in Chicago until further notice. General manager Ryan Poles was definitely busy this offseason. He ended up trading for veteran wide receiver Keenan Allen from the Chargers. He has 6 1,000-yard seasons under his belt, including last year where he had a career high 108 receptions. DeAndre Swift is another guy new to the Windy City. He signed a 3-year, $24 million deal, coming off of a 1,000-yard rushing season with the Eagles, which is the only one of his career. Swift should be able to be used in the passing game too. Cole Kmet is coming off of 90 catches for 719 yards, a career year for him, so Caleb Williams is going to have some solid pass catchers. And he also has some dudes protecting him too. Right tackle Darnell Wright went 10th overall in the draft in 2023 and started every game as a rookie, allowing just 7 sacks. Tevin Jenkins is another young lineman that went decently high in the second round 3 years ago. He really struggled at tackle and dealt with injuries early on in his career, but he has performed better at guard. The Bears really just need him to stay healthy. Nate Davis is the highest paid lineman on the roster at $10 million per season, and the Bears really need him to play like it. There's potential for the Bears offense, especially if Caleb Williams can perform well. Matt Eberflus is the head coach, but offensive coordinator Shane Waldron is going to be the guy manning the offense. He was the passing game coordinator for the Rams under Sean McVay and was last the OC with the Seahawks, where he helped Geno Smith have the Comeback Player of the Year campaign in 2022. That Geno Smith season was the best of his career, and funny enough, was actually a better season passing than any Bears quarterback has ever had. There's a very real chance Caleb Williams becomes the best quarterback in Chicago history, and it wouldn't really take that long for him to earn that title either. The Bears have never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards or 30 touchdowns in a single season. The Bears quarterback history is objectively hilarious, and the franchise is banking on Caleb Williams to finally put an end to that. The greatest quarterback in team history is probably Sid Luckman, who was drafted before World War II even started, but don't get me wrong, he was a stud in the 1940s. Luckman won an MVP and an NFL championship before the Super Bowl ever existed. The franchise all-time passing leader is Jay Cutler by a mile, and the best season in team history was by Eric Kramer in 1995. The Bears quarterback history is easily the worst in the NFL. It's been laughable, but hopefully Caleb Williams can change that, and one day, pretty soon, be the greatest quarterback in Bears history.